This is right after the Kent State killing. The students were protesting white motorists harassing them traveling down Lynch Street in Jackson, Mississippi. This led to a riot, which then led to police killing 2 African-American students. Pretty grim stuff. We were talking about today's the anniversary of Kent State. Anyhow, in the meantime, we've got Trump sending a trade delegation to China, and it looks like they just got slapped down pretty effectively. Let's check in with Lori Wallach, the executive director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. TradeWatch.org is the website, or citizen.org/trade. Lori's Twitter handle is Wallach, W-A-L-L-A-C-H, Lori, L-O-R-I, Wallach Lori, or public_citizen. Lori, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
So what happened with Trump's trade delegation in China, and what does it mean?
Well, I think we are seeing a long overdue sort of showdown about what has been years of the Chinese government basically coming up with their own rules of trade and engagement with the global economy that are not particularly fair for working people here, and certainly don't follow any of the global rules, some of which I don't like, but are ostensibly what all the countries signed up for.
Right.
I think the thing that's going to come down to, I think it's not going to be, we're not going to know what the outcome of this stare down is going to be for some time, because I think the calculation is from the U.S. side, and, you know, this is something I wish the Obama folks had in mind to do. I think the calculation is what's called the China 2025 plan, which is a $300 billion subsidy plan for China by 2025. The government is putting the money into it to dominate emerging industries like robotics, healthcare, electric transportation, et cetera.
Right. And there's a made in China piece to that, too. Isn't it sort of like the Buy America Act of 1935? It says that the Chinese government has to source all products to Chinese manufacturers.
That is correct, but also there's just a gazillion dollars, and literally the Chinese government, state-owned sovereign wealth funds, buying up U.S. and European competitors to take the technology and transfer it to China to shut down the competition. I mean, it's a very elegant plan. It's just not necessarily in the interest of working people or consumers in other countries.
Right.
And it's a very government-organized industrial policy, which parts of it seem pretty unfair, but also in the absence of the U.S. having an industrial policy, the prospect of the U.S. worker and consumer getting clobbered is pretty high. But that agenda of China is something that now both the U.S. but Europe, many of China's trade partners are saying, this does not seem like a good agenda in the long term for the rest of us.
Right.
So whether having that space being contested by other countries, again, I wish a Democratic administration had said, this doesn't seem to be in our interest, but that fight versus China's calculation that they're now too big to really, it's too late to do anything about them.
Right.
That they were, as a sort of command economy, were able to become so big, so integrated, have been able to have so many entanglements in other countries that at this point it's too late to do anything to push back or sort of renegotiate either the terms of trade and commerce with any particular country, including the very big U.S., or to get a sort of renegotiation multilaterally of the rules of the road. Right. And so that's the stare down right now. And those tariffs are just sort of like the 2x4 being waved around to get that conversation started.
Right, tariffs on both sides. China has now apparently stopped buying U.S. soybeans, which is going to whack Kansas and Iowa. And my understanding is that the Trump team went and said, you guys have a $200 billion trade deficit with us, which is kind of down from the $500 billion that Trump announced. and I thought it was actually around 400 billion, but apparently they said 200.
You are right. It's 400 billion. What they said is that China has to cut it by 200 billion
I
in
see.
half.
Okay, so, and then the Chinese basically said, yeah, good luck with that. Do I have that right?
More or less. I mean, so your point about the soy is the perfect example of sort of why the U.S. government has said, okay, guys, you have this uncanny ability to just tell your so-called business sector what to do.
Right.
So here's how this problem gets resolved. You are unfairly subsidizing. You are misaligning your currency. You are stealing technology, blah, blah, blah. And all along, you're suppressing any independent unions so your workers don't get paid anything, even as you're developing and becoming a global economic powerhouse. Your workers don't have any ability to bring themselves up as your government and your elites and your businesses are making themselves worldwide leaders. So here are the rules of the road you could think about, or alternatively, just reduce your trade deficit by 200 billion. You're in charge of your economy, so deal with that. And this is in part in response, that demand, to the Chinese government having issued a memo which leaked, so you can read about in the press, an edict out to all of the state and local government officials saying the top national priority, the signal of your patriotism, is to get all arable land sown in soy, which is to say to get a bunch of planting done, because China's of the prospect that being a not democratic society, being able to have that kind of centralized control means that they can sit through trade frictions for longer.
Sure, and they can.
Ultimately, the corporate lobby will pressure the U.S. government to back down and just cave in.
Yeah, and that's probably an accurate determination, isn't it?
You know, it's hard to say what the level of determination is at this point with the top trade officials. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think probably everyone who's listening to the show recognizes and is horrified at what a morally corrupt, dangerous, dreadful president we have and most of the administration. Perhaps the only beacon of sunshine is the trade operation. The guy who is the top trade guy is
Lighthizer.
A principal guy, Bob Lighthizer. He's smart. He actually has, for decades, had a personal position about these issues that overlaps remarkably with public citizens, with labor unions' positions.
Yeah, he's been on this program a number of times.
ISDS, he's for labor standards. Anyway, he's also a really unflappable guy, and he has a vision about what it means to not contest this China space now before it's too late.
Right.
And so whether his leadership, which has bin very strong in NAFTA, which, by the way, I hope we have a second to talk about that, because it does look like, a deal might be forthcoming, and it may not be bad. His leadership on China, I think, is going to be part of the answer to whether this dispute that's been engaged now gets followed out in a way that actually makes a difference. Yeah,
and whether the Trump administration has the courage to do it. I would think that their base, as well as probably most of the rest of America, is supportive of Lighthizer's trade agenda. The question is, will it get corrupted by Trump deciding that some other shiny object is a better one? Yeah, or he needs more money from the Chamber of Commerce. We have a minute left if you want to talk about NAFTA.
Well, here's the sort of preview of coming attractions for what could happen, which is really important because it's not what you'd expect. But it does appear that at this point, some combination of the trade representative being someone who has had a pretty forward-looking view about these agreements, opposed NAFTA from day one, has been demanding the same kind of changes we all have, and the fact that it really became clear in Congress when the TPP couldn't get a majority that it may be the end of the road for the old model corporate-led trade agreement. And, you saw a bunch of Republicans on that side. They were reading the same tea leaves that Trump was when he basically took on the whole Democratic trade agenda and made it his own. So there is some decent chance that basically the negotiators, recognizing where the politics in Congress are more or less going to do what the unions, the consumer groups, the Democrats in Congress have been demanding for decades on a lot of the NAFTA renegotiation issues, which would put us in the odd position of having an agreement that would basically get rid of the outsourcing incentives at the heart of NAFTA, get rid of the Buy America ban, get rid of the investor state tribunals, raise labor standards. Big if, but this is sort of the direction it's heading. Don't know if they're going to get there. Don't know if it'll be, what we understand it's heading towards. But if you could have a scenario where the unions, public citizen, and Democrats in Congress are supporting it, and the Republicans in the Chamber of Commerce are against.
Interesting. Lori Wallach with TradeWatch.org, part of Public Citizen's Global Trade Watch, the executive director. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Great talking with you as always. We'll be right back.